that second mic.
It's hard to do with an iPhone. Hey, welcome back to the Security Clearance Podcast. This is the series, The Sewing Machine Between Us. We have... Justin. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you for driving all this way.
Just Justin.
Yeah, we'll keep it. That's easy. All right. You had some things you said you want to talk about, and then the next day you're like, check out this Joe Rogan podcast. And then I was like, okay. And then after that, you're like, haha, Pizzagate. So I don't really know where you want to, what kind of tone you want to have with this one, like a more serious tone. Because I know you wanted to talk about like suicide, which is something that's affected me. I guess a little bit of background about us. We're both military. Do you want to say what kind of military you are?
No, I will. So, first, anything I say is just my opinion.
Absolutely,
my employers or my bosses. So
yeah, of course.
But yeah, I was in the Marine Corps, like you.
Mm-hmm.
Did 14 years and then switched over to become a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
Wanted to help people. And, so that's what I'm trying to do. Before I was a winger, so anybody in the Marine Corps knows what that means.
Yeah, air wing.
Not a real Marine, just a...
Debatable.
The Air Force of the Marine Corps. So, but did 4 OAFs, 1 OEF, so Iraq and then Afghanistan as well. And then went to nursing school, and here I am 18 years later, which is crazy how fast that time goes by. But
yeah, it is. So I remember I did my 4 years in the Marine Corps, and like it's just dragging on. You know, I joined right before my 21st birthday, and just like 4 years just went very somewhat slowly. But then looking back, you're like, oh, and then the time it took me to go from Marine Corps to Navy, it was like, but that was 5 years, and then now I'm almost at my 3-year mark. I'm just like, and I remember a kid just be like, oh, I want to be a grown-up one day. And now I'm like halfway through being grown up, you know?
Now I want to slow it down. Yeah.
Absolutely. It's really... I know they say that the more RAM you have, the more data you have in your brain, the faster things seem to go. But when you only have 5 years in your brain, that, you know, the concept of an hour is like, oh my God, an hour is just so... Anyway, I digress. But you wanted to talk about suicide. It's affected you, as in your Marines, right?
Yeah, I think it's affected all of us in general. As a society, we know that, at least American society, so suicide has increased over the years. It was like something like 80-something a day back in the 2000s, and just a couple years ago, the numbers were like 100-something per day.
It's like 22 a minute or something, right? I remember the word 22, and people are doing 22 miles, something like that.
That 20 number has to do with veteran suicides, and the VA has actually just changed that, so their number is like 17 a day, which is still too many. That 20-something number includes active duty, and National Guard who have never been activated.
Yeah.
So that's where that number comes from. And every life obviously is valued, but that's where those numbers come from. But yeah, so personally, I've experienced it in my life, as far as family, Marines of mine. So, guy from my unit, young man I put in the Marine Corps. And just recently...
so someone when you were a recruiter, you mean?
Yeah, so when I was a recruiter, I put a gentleman in the Marine Corps. He was doing well, did initial training, and I believe he was on leave from his MOS school. By this point, I had gone back to the fleet, and the fleet means that I was done with recruiting duty. So I had finished my tour on recruiting, and... learned shortly after that he had suicided.
Yeah.
So that, and then also recently, within the past couple weeks, one of my Marines that was actually a Marine of mine when I was a sergeant suicided. So it's made me kind of reflect on what am I doing about it, because I'm kind of tired of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I'm tired of it being kind of something that we don't talk about, or it being an issue of weakness, or it being something difficult to deal with logistically. So just the dealing with it emotionally sucks.
Yeah.
But if you have behavioral health issues, even if you have health issues, I think, not to plug your show, but you've talked about things before about how hard it is to get, healthcare things done in the military.
Yeah. Well, we met in the ER, right? And we're the hospital, in my opinion. We're the sick call. We schedule appointments. People come in, hey, I'm trying to get an MRI. I want to get an MRI today. Sometimes we actually cater to that where, okay, we take them upstairs and it's like, for the most part, you check in at the ER in my eyes, and then you get an appointment for there. And if my wife, second pregnancy, me, second go in the military, making appointments, they'll be like, well, what's your issue? I'm like, well, I just need to get this. And then they're kind of almost want you to go get screened before you come in. Now especially they do with like dental and everything. You have to do a COVID test in order to. But I try to approach it lightly, and I'm sure you've seen enlisted joking about, medical things like, I don't know. In the Marine Corps, we joked about death a lot, right? So, but I know people that have come in that have having, psych issues, and people make a snarky comment and like, oh, well, their career's done. No. It's such a faux pas. One of the reasons this is called security clearance is because I'm pending one, right? So I'm pending one because I got out of the Marine Corps. I didn't have a security clearance. I did illicit drugs. I lost about 2 years of my life just, in Spaceland. And I had to talk to behavioral health a lot, and they wanted to make sure I wasn't going to kill myself. I wasn't, people make a plan, and we see them come down all the time. Well, there's people that say, oh, I'm going to kill myself, and it's just frustration. And then you have people that come down, they go, I have a plan. I'm tired of this. I want to go. I'm trying to check out. And they go, okay, well, you're going to come upstairs because we don't think you're safe by yourself. I knew a Marine right when I got in. I was a booty boot. This guy, 2 deployments to Iraq, and then he volunteered to go to Afghanistan. I remember he went and did a 72-hour stay at a psych ward, and we thought he wasn't going to be deployable, but he was, and he's thriving still to this day. But it's such a faux pas that, hey, this person who most likely, I don't know how many times you saw it, but I think most people are joining the military single, right?
Yeah.
You're on your own. You've left the nest. You're developing as a 19-year-old, 21-year-old in the military where a lot of crude things happen, all appropriate, but a lot of infantry is very crude. Talking about war, talking about, okay, hey, do you have your death plan figured out where $400,000 goes to what family member? How do you want to do your burial? And it's very decimal in way. And then what I experience, I have a great family, but what I experience is I get out of the Marine Corps and it's just, they pull that rug out from under you. You have no support. The VA is a nightmare. And then a lot of my friends just get overprescribed all the good drugs, all the Xanax, all the Percocet, whatever, from the VA because they have these whatever issues. Not whatever issues, but they have issues. And a lot of people think that, medication's the way. When I was going through things, I deferred medication, did talk therapy, exercised a lot. I took a psychology class to understand the chemicals and the things that are going on in my brain. So my experience.
I think that's huge, and I think it's important that the conversation is had, and not just because we experience you go into the theater and they do the all the classes, the
Mm-hmm.
PowerPoints of like, don't beat your wife, which is not funny that we joked about that, but we made that joke about that class, and the don't kill yourself joke, and like,
I think the humor comes from it for me. Well, I think humor is a way to try and cope. And then also, I think it's humor. There's humor in not the right way or the wrong way, but there's humor in a negative. And I see it's like, for example, the NFL player that crushes his wife in an elevator, and then, NFL's like, hey, don't beat your wife. And you're like, hey, NFL, you're supposed to be telling us that? What about your guys that are doing that? So I think that's the irony can be, thought of as,
yeah. So, um, we do those classes, and we do them to make sure that we have the face of we did this.
Yes.
But I think it's important to actually sit down and say, like, I've dealt with shit, not your shit, because
Mm-hmm.
your shit is yours, it's personal, but I've had it too. Like, I'll be honest, I have experienced, mental health stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I have
I
seen,
think everyone has.
and I think we have this like false narrative that only, crazy people or only weak people have actually asked for help. And I think it's the complete opposite. I think it takes a lot of strength to
A
go
lot
and
of courage,
say
yeah.
that, hey, I'm struggling with something and I need help with it. So personally, I would be surprised based on my conversations with my fellow Marines, my buddies from before. There aren't many of us that I don't think have needed it or have pursued it. But I think the next step is also saying it's okay to say that you've thought about suicide,
Mm-hmm.
that you've thought about ending your life.
Mm-hmm.
Because personally, I have thought about it.
Yeah.
I've actually called the line myself.
Yeah.
And it was in those deepest moments, and then moving from those, that I think you can really empathize with other people. It doesn't mean that everybody has to have this, but I think that's why those of us that have had that experience need to step up and start saying something, saying like life sucks sometimes.
Yeah.
And that in our society is not really accepted because we have like Instagram and we have all of this stuff where like life is supposed to be perfect. And even like what's even more bullshit is these companies actually promote these things like TikTok. They promote the people that look good or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it creates this image in people's minds of perfection, and that's like total bullshit. Like it's absolute horseshit.
So when I went through my issues, I never called the line, but I called the VA when it was like, hey, I'm in a manic state right now. I can tell, I've been messing around with hallucinogens. Like, I need to talk to someone. We're closed right now. Sorry, no one to talk to. You need to call like the suicide line or whatever. I made it through everything, but there was, I felt uncomfortable in my skin. I felt I was in an unsafe environment because I thought someone was trying to attack me. Granted, I didn't have great neighbors at the time, but so when these things happen, I made it very public to my Marines, and a lot of them reach back out to me like, "Hey, I've been kind of suffering in silence. It's crazy to know that you went through something. I'm checking on you while checking on myself," type of thing. One of them, friend Lester, calls me, "Hey, heard you going through a rough time." Well, it helps you to help someone. So what I do, talking about him talking to me, he goes, "I'm on the other end of that suicide helpline. I'm trying to talk down people from what's going on. I find a lot of benefit in it, and we sit there, and I don't know the experience, but he said he sits there and bullshits with people, talks to them, just lets you know that you're not alone." And that's what a lot of what I went through in those 2 years is isolation. I moved to Oregon, trying to go to school. I've, had mental health issues that I withdrew from school, and then I didn't have a job at the time, and I was just isolated in an apartment where I didn't know anybody. And then when I started taking one of my first classes was psychology, and I found out that, oh, the worst thing you can do to a human is put them in isolation in a prison by themselves. Like, yeah, you're putting them in prison, but the worst is confinement, where you just go crazy in your own head, where you have no one to bounce ideas off of. And that's why I think something like this is very important. A thing that helped me was, I listened to a variety, but I started listening to Joe Rogan, and it felt like I was in the room, and sometimes I kind of, give my opinion to the podcast or whatever, but that gave me a way. And also the way he's this tattooed, weed smoking, but he also has multiple disciplines. I was like, oh, who's this guy? And he's just a bro that's very successful, lucky in certain ways, hard worker, but he just sits down and talks, and you have whatever your opinion on the person is, Bernie Sanders or Tulsi Gabbard, whoever, police officer this, CIA that, he talks to him for about 3 hours. And my dad told me something about that. My dad used to run a home building company. He goes, well, you can do a 15-minute interview, kind of maybe not even really get to know the person, but I do an hour and a half with you, and really, you do a ride along in a truck, and I finally get to break through your wall and get to know who you are. Then I can start to judge your character, and then I can maybe predict if you're going to be on time or get the job done right. But even still, these TikTok, Facebook, social media, I'm almost disconnected from all of it, except for Snapchat. I've been good about staying away from those news feeds. Been good about staying away from the news, but it's always on in the break room. I don't enjoy it. And then I use YouTube. I finally signed up for, always nervous he's going to break something. My dog. YouTube Premium. Another $15 service. I have the first month free. But it's good to not be advertised at by Burger King and then later for a high cholesterol medication. I think along with mental health, that's such a faux pas that we need to get over. And I want to talk about the way this started off even way back, something called Warrior Systems, but I want to talk about just overall health, where medication is a lot of times prescribed, especially in the emergency room, for you got your owie, right? You have your back pain, you have your cut, you have your broken arm, your high blood pressure at the time. We give you a medication, and right at the discharge we say, this isn't a long-term solution. Mm-hmm. This is acute. We've got you through today. On Monday or whenever, you need to call and set up with your doctor to get a long-term plan, an overall health plan to get healthier. What I would like to start seeing, and certain corporations do this, is incentivize exercise, incentivize staying away from computers and cell phones, incentivize staying away from tobacco. I know a friend that he got a $400 bonus for giving up dipping at his work, and other people gave up cigarettes. I was like, well, that's really cool. And I know the thing behind a lot of corporations doing is so they have to pay less for healthcare in the end. But I don't think there's anything wrong with. So, did you spend any time outside of the military between Marine Corps and Navy?
No. So I went straight through.
So I spent 5 years total. I tried to join the Navy year 4 right at the end, and it took me a little bit of time to get in. The Marine Corps, the GI Bill, tricks you into educating yourself for someone that's brick-headed like me, that's like, oh, I want to pay my rent, and I don't want to work crazy hours or whatever. So you go to school, and they give you money for the area you're in, or E5 pay, and it kind of dawned on me one day, they're like, oh, they're like Tom Sawyering me with the fence to like, oh, working is fun, painting the fence is fun, and then I'm actually learning, improving myself, and then one day I can step away from kind of the free money to go to school and go on. I didn't get very far, but I thought it was very interesting. Anyway, and then old school warriors, which I believe, I don't know, it's weird with the Navy and some people are just mechanics, but old school warriors had a culture that when they came back, they had a healing period. So you go to Afghanistan, you go to Iraq, you come back in your Native American tribe, they do their ayahuasca or whatever, they have a mentality, the wife, the gatherers in the tribe go through a healing process with the warrior that just, has to release the souls, and it's all very mystical back in the day. And I'm not saying we should all come home and do mushrooms and stuff, but some people do find themselves in peyote tents. I know a lot of I watched a documentary about it, but trying to basically do a lot of therapy within a 6-hour period of a mushroom trip or something, and express themselves and letting things go. I dealt with that a lot I grew up in a Christian culture where every week they're like, oh, raise your hand if you just got saved, and you're a emotional teenager and you're crying and stuff because you stole jelly beans from a grocery store and you feel bad for it, and you raise your hand and repent, and Jesus loves you and you get to move on. There's something to that with dwelling on things of the past, with forgiving yourself, moving on, and charging ahead. That's why they say people that retire, I think they die within a certain amount of time because they don't have community, they don't have drive, they don't have a purpose anymore, and they sit on a couch and watch TV, wither away, muscle atrophy. They don't keep their cardiovascular system going, and then it's not much longer until, old folks home, and then goodbye.
I think it's big on the whole having a mission. That goes back to the whole suicide thing. It's one of the things that helps to prevent it. But if you have a mission, you have something, and whether it be that topic or just in general bettering yourself, having a goal or a mission or a mission statement of this is what I am, and this is what defines me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you were talking about it in terms of religion or spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
I think that whole disconnecting yourself, and this is getting into what we've talked about for hours at work, is like separating out the this is the work person, this is the family person, and this is just like the entity or the spirit or whatever, the soul, whatever your term is, or if you don't have any of those, just separating out those things and identifying, okay, just because that person or that identity did this task does not equal that is all this person is. So you can help to forgive yourself for things, because you're not just saying, well, I am a bad person because I did this bad thing. Well, no, that bad thing happened.
Yeah.
That occurred. I'm not saying there aren't repercussions for your actions, but it's this whole idea of separating, and psychology helps with that, because then you start to realize that there's drives of why we do the things that we do, and it isn't necessarily just that's a bad person, this is a good person acts this way, a bad person acts that. That's a bullshit way to think about life.
Somewhat. So, I think you could talk about character and actions. If someone's in an environment and they constantly just keep making boneheaded mistakes, there's a little bit of character and a little bit of, environment, and I don't know. Does that make sense, or am I...
So where does that character come from? So that's the thing. So
nature versus nurture,
exactly.
Right? You are the essence of who you are, and then also somewhat, what is it? You are the company you keep.
Yeah. So how you were brought up, also the society. So, we can sit here and finger point at TikTok or Facebook, and they're all, but they're also brought up in that environment. So like, how can we, same thing for them. Like, we're all in this fucking game that we're trying to figure out. And so I think people like Joe Rogan are helpful because they're saying like, to just point that one thing is good or bad isn't helpful. We do it in social media or whatever, like this is the right way, this is the wrong. So we have to really realize that people are way too complex to just say, well, that's their character. Well, no, it's not just their character. There's a lot more. I mean, I have done actions that I would regret because it hurt another person. Because I think that should be one of our tenets. Don't hurt other people. That's a pretty easy one. But like, I think it's way too easy just to put people into categories so easily.
Yeah, well, I think the pandemic has amplified that. That's why I've done this before, especially up in Oregon when I got rid of Facebook, which takes 2 weeks, by the way. I don't know if you have Facebook. It takes 2 weeks for them to remove you from Facebook. And if you log in within that 14 days, they're like, oh, no, we're not deleting you quite yet. And they even say we have to deroot you from Facebook. We have to remove anybody that, and they have facial recognition that'll say, oh, we think this is you. And I found myself in photos across Facebook that was me that no one tagged me in. And Facebook said, hey, we think this is you. So I removed myself from Facebook. I got Instagram. I just deleted Instagram because it was... What I didn't mind about it is a lot of it was tits and ass, which is fine with me, but then it's just a bunch of negative. And then I was part of a couple group chats of like some team guys and Marines and stuff, and they're just putting up like pretty hardcore violence of like just what's going on in the world. And I was like, man, I don't want to watch this anymore. And then the other side of that is also complete denial of what else is going on and everything. This dude with washboard abs is jumping off a cliff in Maui or whatever, and it's like, oh, life is perfect. I never have any sort of hurt or pain happen to me. I'm a millionaire Instagram model, as they call it, and it's. But the pandemic has stopped people from socializing face to face, sat people down in their homes, and so if you don't have an outlet, what are you doing? You're getting on those social media things that allow us to communicate with each other. You have your voice on there, though it's very small, and you're just crucify him. We want the dude's gone. You can't have any sort of smudge in your, and I think what they're doing is what they're going after, like talk show hosts now because of blackface, things like that. And it's I don't want to really touch on that, but
well, I mean, no, I think it's good to talk about it because it's kind of like they keep talking about Dr. Fauci and like his mistakes or whatever, or his things that he misstated in the most recent. But everyone makes a mistake in something they say, or maybe it's not even a mistake. They had the information that they had at the time. Now, obviously portraying a different race to mock them in a time back in, I could see where somebody may think, okay, I'm doing this in jest, and now we know, hey, that's not okay. So
we think differently than back then.
Yeah, but to sit here and crucify those people, I don't think is fair, because if we did that to everybody, I don't think any of us are free of...
Well, that's what it's getting to the point to. It's everybody's eating each other, even the people, whatever side of the political spectrum, up, down, left, right, we're starting to turn on each other, and it's not about the message they're trying to put out, the mission they're trying to accomplish, which hopefully is a good thing they're trying to do. It's about what they did 20 years ago. Let's handicap that person and take their legs out from them.
What's funny is they wouldn't do it in person, and that they'll do it on Facebook. You'll say anything, or I have a Twitter, but I don't really go on there. But if you sat across the table with somebody just like this, and the funny thing is, it's so awkward. It's even awkward. We do it at work, like, because you get so used to, all right, I'm going to text. Like, even when somebody calls you on the phone, you're like, what the fuck? Why are you calling me? Like, why don't you text me and, like, set up a time to call me? And so it's so weird that we don't want to connect in any personal way. One, because I wear an Apple Watch, so like I can't say that it's not beneficial. It's really good, like when I'm on the floor working as a nurse, like if I need to know something right away, I can get a text, I can look at my watch real quick, I'm not very distracted, and I know what's going on.
I'll say I wish I had a phone that was the Apple Watch. Like, no internet, you can't look up stuff on here. You get photos come through every once in a while. You get a little video, a little speaker. If I could have just like a flip phone that was Apple Watch, that'd be great for me. I know you like technology. I have Apple over there. We're filming on an iPhone. Like, I'm all in on Apple. I really like them. I trust them in a way, as much as I can trust a corporation. Excuse me, I know y'all can hear me burping. But the Apple Watch, I think, is actually pretty good now that you say it. It's not a big time waster like a cell phone.
Yeah.
You check in, Justin's going to be here very shortly. I'm going to take a shower. If Justin calls, I have my Apple Watch. I can say, hey, I'm still in the shower. Give me 1 second, It's pretty good. The cell phone, which is, we used to have a phone mounted to the wall, and if I'm not home, wait till I get home. Something called the answering machine came out. You can leave a message, get back to that person, or just not. That would happen too. Well, I haven't been in town in 2 weeks. I didn't get your message. I had 50 of them. Kind of blasted through them real quick.
I think it's huge having conversations. And I've alluded to this at work, but in some of our conversations. But I don't think we have the answer yet. I think so I could sit here and say, this is the wrong way to do things. We shouldn't just be on our phones always texting. That's not helpful either. I'm just doing the same thing that I said about characterizing everything. Mm-hmm. So I think we are in the adolescent stage of like
AI.
That's coming, whether you like it or not. But I think we're still figuring out, and that's why people, this whole like, flip phone, like people are actually saying, maybe that's a good idea. Like maybe we should, and I can't say that I don't think it's a good idea as well. Like if I have my iPad, why do I need my phone? It does the same exact thing. It's just a mini version of my iPad now.
Yeah.
But I think we do need to figure out how to make technology work but still have this social interaction, which is why, Joe Rogan and hopefully like something like this medium right here blows up, because it's important for us to get back to actually talking. And, I think, and that alludes back to everything we were talking about with suicide. Just talking
talking's just feeling like you have a voice,
and connection.
So,
because you can yell out into
I don't.
nothing.
That's not really what I mean by voice. I mean like reciprocation. I say something, you analyze it and go, interesting. You said that. I think. And conversation,
But it's so easy online, obviously, when you don't have that person. You have a screen, and you can say, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah.
Why would you say that? This is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And then we've also got to the point where somebody will say something online, we show it to somebody, can you believe they said this? Which is what I actually did to Georges. I was really messing with her.
Yeah.
But, so, like, we show it to people, like, can you believe they said this? Like, and we expect outrage.
Yeah.
And it's like, hold on, let's slow down.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they have a different perspective on it. This is the way that they're saying it, but for me to go on and, like, feverishly type on my phone, like, no, this is what the evidence says, this is what... Let's sit down and talk. Like, what is it about?
It's a little bit like debate or just politics in general. I never was a part of debate, but I I saw the movie Great Debaters. I think that's a terrible name, but I think it was Denzel Washington has a group of all black debaters, and it was really compelling. But in the movie, it's this scenario where people are actually listening to what's going on each side. But real debate or just politics or the news is not about listening, mulling over the things they just said and going, this is how I feel, think, compared to facts, what you said. They're just pushing over, manipulating what that person said and trying to get their point across no matter what. That's why I think there's such a big divide between left and right, because they're not actually talking. Mm-hmm. They're talking at each other. Have you ever experienced, I know I experienced that in the Marine Corps, where someone's just talking at me, not expecting me, and that's a little bit of what the military is. At you, done talking, conversation's over, and I think a lot of people want that. They get that from, there was a certain staff sergeant in the ACC the other day that was talking about his conversation with someone over the internet, and he's like calling him an idiot, and and it was just like, now that I've stepped away a little bit from it, it's easier to see. I don't know if you've ever experienced that as well, where it's like, oh, I drive a Nissan whatever. Now that I just bought this car, I see that car everywhere. Tony Robbins talks about that. It's a certain thing where, oh, you now have this file in your brain, and now you have that file, you get to recognize that everywhere you go, or you have withdrawn from that scenario, you get to look outward into it from a different perspective. And I think I was very frustrated leaving work last shift because the ACC was into all the, coronavirus, and then some of the doctors in the doc box on our side were talking about it. Georges gets on her little thing, and poor, bless her heart. And I'm like, I need to step away from it. I need to go play video games, watch TV, whatever, exercise to I think that's a big thing where people need to unplug a little bit, go for a run. I've tried to start doing it without headphones, which is difficult, but it's I don't know, I'm a little in the weeds here, but
so I had just listened to the one I sent you.
Can I do something real quick and make sure we're recording?
Yeah.
We're good. That'd be terrible.
So, this whole idea of natural and unnatural.
That
guy. So I'd like to read his book. Apparently, it's not an audiobook, so I'm gonna actually have to.
Yeah, Joe Rogan had a problem with that. He was like, "Well, I had to actually read your book, guy."
So I don't have a whole lot of time. I get that aspect. So audiobooks are huge.
We're gonna do ASMR for the people at home. Oh yeah, was that good for you? Sorry.
So, so this idea of natural, and I think it's really important that we push back on it some, but we still need to accept some of this technology. So I think
yes. So technologies I'm comfortable with, and I have 3 Razer phones in that drawer right there that I was trying to. I could actually have it done because they run on 2G and 3G towers, right? Well, they didn't just destroy those towers. They sold them or rent them to companies that Walmart uses, right? Like Spring Phone, whatever,
yeah.
And you can use those, and they're using old Verizon towers, right? The technologies I like about my cell phone, my computer, my TV, one is they're connected, and especially with Apple, I can move things almost seamlessly through iPhone, computer, TV, Apple Watch, iPad, which is brilliant because I remember growing up, my brother knew how to, I would say, I guess, a little bit program on like DOS and things. He knew how to get past the blank screen and get something booted up, and he had a camcorder and he was trying to get the camcorder to the computer, and just I think at that point it just didn't exist, and was frustrating. Now I'm going to take this, upload it to that, and then upload it to YouTube, and potentially one day I can make money off of it, which is great. I think GPS is great. I don't want to die in a place called Death Valley out in the middle of the desert because I got lost and I don't know which way is which. I run out of fuel and I cook in the desert because my GPS isn't working right. You remember atlases? Those big things?
Why?
Yeah, I know, but like, you?
But that's the point.
Yeah,
like you had to have a huge
map.
Magazine,
you had to,
and what happens when that road changes, or now
you have to get the 2020 version, right?
What's funny though is now our experience of that is you get on Apple Maps or Google Maps or whatever, and your neighborhood, if you have like a new development, it's not on there. And you're like, geez, like this is ridiculous, and it's this first world problem of your development's not in the map.
Yeah, first world problem, but I'm from Louisiana. I live pretty close to New Orleans, and it got developed, and it took a long time for someone to finally remap Apple's GPS, and it was pretty frustrating. I don't know. I guess it is first world problems, but I think that's important. I think people's time is important. I think giving someone something of quality. And I think we're missing that a lot of just cheap stuff. We work for our money. We do whatever we do, and then we try and buy something. We have to buy the thing 10 times because it's not very good, and it's like, Amazon's kind of given us that. I appreciate Amazon as another technology where it's like, oh, I forgot an ingredient for something. I can have it here tomorrow and I can be good. I can have some oddball thing for my vehicle delivered. I can, something I haven't. That's actually something fun for me where it's like, what is the name of that? And I find the product and I order it, and it's very obscure. Like, you know what a swivel top bottle is? Where you've seen me drink out of them, where you pop the top. It's got like a little metal cage contraption, and it's like pressurizes like a growler. Mm-hmm. Well, I had to find, first of all, it's called a swivel top bottle, and then I had to find the grommet for it because mine got like something funky on it, and I had to order that, or anyway. I think certain technologies is great. I think I've tried to do it. I'm about to just delete it, but my phone reminds me if I've been on YouTube, Snapchat, on my phone, Netflix, or like Hulu, or I don't actually use those on my phone, but it says, hey, you've been on this
time limit thing
for an hour, and I go, ignore for the day.
Well, the funny thing, so I lie to myself, and I'll hit like ignore for 15 minutes.
I don't even lie to myself that much.
Ignore for an hour, and then an hour later I'm like, oh fuck.
Yeah.
It's been another hour.
Yeah. Do you wear your Apple Watch to sleep?
I wish I could. I don't know. So I'm a super nerd, obviously. Uh-huh. So I like data and being able. It would probably not benefit me at all. Like I sleep, and that's probably good enough. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to see how well I'm sleeping or
you get a sleep
not
number.
sleeping.
I have Sleep Number. It tells me how well I slept. It's kind of cool.
Tell me that, yeah, because I don't. Well,
it's a great bed. I love it. It was quite expensive, but it's a great bed.
So I mean, there's a whole like.
This podcast is brought to you by Sleep Number. Type in Joe Rogan so check out the screen for tax free shipping and handling.
I think the future versions of the watch will. The issue is the battery, and that's the issue with everything. The battery and Tesla's batteries.
Well, I used to sleep with my watch because I just used to sleep with a watch on. Wake up, and I go back to bed instead of scrambling for my alarm clock. It would buzz at night and be like, "Hey, it's time to stand up." I'm like, "What what? I'm sleeping right now. Time to stand up. You need to get your steps in." Or I turned off like everything, and it would, again, like very ironically, it would tell me time to stand up. It would give me text messages, different alerts, emails. I check my emails pretty regularly, but like I don't want to check my email on my Apple Watch. There's a I've never been in a Tesla. I don't know if you have, but I know you can check your emails on the dashboard. Is that true?
I have not been in a Tesla. I have my cheap man Tesla.
Yeah. How do you
Tesla? I've got a Volt, so which please bring the Volt back. It's the best car out there.
Is it?
I think. Oh yeah.
What's your gas mileage?
So I mean, I get 56 to 60 some miles on the battery.
Whoa.
And then after the battery, if I switch over to the electric or the gas engine, I probably average about 60 to 70.
Is it a plug-in car?
Yeah, it's a plug-in. Well, it's its own like weird like.
You can't go to a Tesla bank and charge.
No, I'm not cool. I'm not cool enough to.
Well, how do you did? So my buddy had a Prius. He wrecked it. Sup, Nick? The Prius battery is charged by the motor, either braking, I believe. I don't know,
braking,
maybe if braking,
and
it'll click on every once in a while to charge that battery where it can.
Yeah, so this car will do that, but it is primarily an electric vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
So I plug it in when I get.
And they got rid of it? They don't make it?
Mm-mm.
Silly.
Chevy got rid of it.
You know what my problem with all that is? Like, okay, take the Prius, right? It's not a great looking car. You know what they do have that looks great? A Camry with the same type of engine.
Yeah, I don't know why they do that.
Why do they make them funky looking?
It's like the BMW.
Oh man,
not the doctors, but
that made me upset. I farted on his car. I'm not joking. I don't like it when people do that. I appreciate that you can work hard and you can buy a material good that you've earned and makes you feel good, and it's pretty from the outside. Whatever, I can accept that. But if I see you in one of these vehicles and you're literally parked like a complete asshole, I don't damage people's car. I've never done that. Maybe in high school I threw a milkshake on someone's car that said spoiled. But, I mean, actions don't define me, right, sir? I don't like when people park like they're a special person because they have a nice car. You take the risks I take when I park my RAV4, which costs a lot of money to me. You park that in one parking spot like a normal person. You don't get to park in the ambulance bay with your new $80,000 BMW. I feel like that person hasn't learned something, or they live their life a certain way that I don't think I get along with. I think that's a flashy thing. I don't like things like that. I don't know. It's a peeve of mine.
Well, and so that you quoted me on your other episode. People aren't very smart.
Yeah.
I think people can be very intelligent, but that does not equal smart or wise. I think that's a huge thing, is separating out the two. And it doesn't sound very nice when I say it, but the meaning behind it is that people can get very wrapped up in their way of thinking, whether it be thinking about they're going to kill themselves, or thinking about I have the right to have this given to me because it's just
was born here.
Yeah, I just expect that I'm supposed to have this. So. Yeah, that kind of annoyed me because I do think that we should be able to charge our cars at work.
Yeah.
And the federal government says that they encourage it, but there has to be a program. Fort Belvoir doesn't allow it.
Right.
But I think it's huge to.
Do you think that's I think it'll clean up the air, but it worries me about I guess a little bit conflict minerals. I mean, a lot of things. I'm assuming those come out of Africa and probably Egypt and things like that. That bothers me. I know I'm supposed to be I'm not supposed to be anything. I'm kind of Republican in certain thoughts, but I don't think we should be destroying the rainforest for precious metals and to plant palm trees and things for.
I think we're already ruining things.
What?
No, I don't think we're doomed. I think we're adolescents. I mean, we're
the aliens just look at us from away. They're not ready yet.
I don't even know if we're adolescents. I think we are. We're childlike in the way that we interact with the earth, with ourselves.
Yeah.
We have a lot. We're still operating off of these minds that are used to being in caves and worried about.
We're collectors. We're collectors of money and goods and property, and this is mine. This is
unless you're enlightened.
Well, that's a very enlightened thing to say. I want to go back to something you said about people aren't very smart. Joe Rogan's guest, this guy, he was a fighter, actually. He turned me on to something called Academy of Ideas on YouTube. And he's got a lot about Nietzsche. Do you know who that is?
Yeah,
I don't know who that is, actually, but I've heard some of his things quoted in this podcast. And he was talking about the masses versus the elevated versus the... Not versus, but you have the general populace, which is the worker bees, the common folk, which, you know, we could both be considered. We're not of this higher level. And then you have these, you know, I would say people that stand out are the rich, the people that have gone from common folk to make some sort of business that is allowed them to do whatever they want or have a bank account that is, you know, substantial, right? And then you have these Elon Musks, you have these, dare I say, Bill Gates, these people that are far elevated and have such a high intelligence that don't concern themselves with the lower, but the lower is constantly trying to nip at their heels, bring them down. What's the... It's not Fahrenheit 451 is where they handicap everybody. Is that... Am I Kurt Vonnegut?
Not sure.
Nothing? Got nothing? One of those, I think it was Kurt Vonnegut, wrote a short story about in the future, everybody will be equal, right? So if you're 6 foot, everybody has to wear platform shoes or whatever. If you're beautiful, you have to wear a mask on your face. If you have, you know, if you're strong Viking blood, you have to wear chains that make you, you know, equal to the lowest of the low instead of, you know, people having diversity. And in this Nietzsche thing, it's called the herd. I think the herd mentality talks about they don't understand the elevated, the thinkers, the philosophers, so they're going to grovel among themselves like they do on social media and try and pick apart people's character and just dismantle them in any way possible. I don't know. Again, I'm in the weeds.
I mean, it's true. It is the way that our society is going. We operate off these thoughts of being in groups, and if we know our group, we know that we're safe. Mm-hmm. So that's a whole connection thing. Yeah. So that keeps us safe from bears or whatever back, when we were worried about that. But we're still operating off of that thought process of being hunter-gatherers, mm-hmm. but we drive cars and we have Amazon and we go to grocery stores. We don't actually...
Well, it's part of the brain, right? What is that? I want to say the amygdala or something, the reptile part of the brain.
Yeah, the reptilian brain.
Yeah, the part where it's fight or flight, food, sugar. That's why a lot of people are addicted to sugar, because we have these receptors that's like, ooh, sugar, we get to survive longer on sugar. We get to survive longer on the coconut. Well, we're eating... Everything's packed with sugar, and we don't need it. We're just fat roly-poly people running around, and it's because we haven't trained our brain correctly. I talked to this about Georgia. She had some things to say. Maybe I didn't pay attention enough in high school, but I want to see people start getting educated at a younger age about how to read food labels. I took a nutrition class in the short time I was in college about the first ingredient is the main ingredient, and all the way down at the bottom is the lesser ingredients, though it's still significant in order to pop on the how does a calorie work Well, a calorie is an energy that takes a certain amount of flame. Like they literally light it on fire to see how long it takes to burn. And I find that all fascinating, but I had to wait until I went to community college to learn that. Why can't, every person in school learn that? Why can't we learn how a bank account works? Learn how a mortgage works, financing, vehicle interest loans, things,
Well, I think because those people that want Coke machines in the school, they have lobbyists that would not
They got
want
skin
that
in the game.
Yeah, so if you start telling them their product is bad, it's not going to go over so well. So
Well, it's interesting with the pandemic, what you'll see. Again, all my TV's from the break room, but it's we're all in this together. We're donating lots of water and masks and medical, and then okay, sign up today for our company to give us money. And you're just like, wait, what? They're all you're in this to make more money, corporation. It's very I don't know, people.
I think that skepticism is good though, and I think that's how we get to not be smart.
Yeah.
That made sense.
Well, if we keep the herd uneducated, if we keep the herd, eating candy bars and sodas, and reliant, we're kind of hooking these people up to the teat, right? We're keeping them well fed with bad food, medication, a bit in debt, paying to these credit companies, American Express, whatever. And it's just making them modern day slaves to almost the thing of their choosing, right? Whether you're, and I'm sorry if that's an offensive term, but whether you're enslaved to your body, where you can't function without something. Whether I quit drinking recently, just because my wife's pregnant, but she's not in town right now. I thought about having a drink the other day. I was like, I don't need to. I want to stay away from that really as long as I can. Maybe one day when I want to enjoy it with people I truly do care about, but I'm not going to a bar, drinking. Anyway, certain people can't function without. I have an aunt in Kentucky. She can't function without fast food. Very sad in my opinion. People can't function without a phone. Nowadays, people can't function. I think we all know a nurse that can't function without Candy Crush, through meetings, through her being the charge nurse, through her doing anything. She's constantly playing Candy Crush, which is, I know you working on your doctorate, master's psychology, right? There's a release in the brain from all these little things we do, from the sugar, from the red dot on the iPhone, from the notification, from the scrolling on the. That's
the whole mouse hitting or rat hitting the lever.
Give me another treat.
Dopamine. Not expecting it is. Yes, exactly.
Dopamine,
so
serotonin.
When you get something you don't expect, so those game developers, they've got it all figured out to be able to get people hooked, just like.
And I think the reason we're not seeing things that are more intuitive, like a flip phone that just functions, that a popular one, they exist, but a very popular phone that's a flip phone that doesn't have the internet, well, the reason we're not getting that is because the people that develop it have skin in the game on making money after. It's not about making an $800 phone that I pay for. It's about making money after that, about going back in and that's why I use Amazon, but I don't use the Amazon app. I try and make it a few steps from ordering something. I have a confirmation code when I log in, all these different things. Just slow it down a little bit so it's not. Do you have PayPal? Mm-hmm. PayPal has one button purchasing. And every time I go to use PayPal, I log in. They go, you can do this with one button. I'm like, I don't want that. Someone was talking about, this was a while ago, they're talking either about PayPal or Google or how it's getting easier to purchase things. And someone was like, Disney did that a long time ago. What are you talking about? You're like, wait, what? They're like, yeah, Disney gives you a wristband and you just scan, don't think about any money. There's a little LCD thing right there that says $14.99, but even your kids scan, grab a Coke and a whatever, their meal. Oh, if I scan right here, I can skip an hour and a half line. Boom, whatever it is, you move along a little bit faster. Then at the end of your vacation, you get a $5,000 bill. There, I figured out the further we move away from, I am caveman, I have thing of value, I trade this thing for that, to swipe a credit card where I don't think about it. Or cash, when you break a 20, you're like, oh, after I break that 20, that money goes a lot quicker. But if I have that 20 in my pocket a long time, it's harder to spend that. It's hard to give my money away,
That's huge. Having time between, or having distance between what you desire and what you want, can either be positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the distance between ourselves and our food source, I think that's terrible. That's a bad idea. But the distance of I've experienced this to this, like when you have that cash and I'm going through the motions of like counting it, then there's a time for a pause, a time to think about it. So I think it's just doing actions that make you think. Like, this is having a conversation right now this took a minute. This took we're going on all four. Like, I don't know how many cylinders you have. I probably have like 6. You might have.
Yeah.
But it takes some effort, and we don't want difficulty. That's why we created technology, to make things a little easier.
Yeah.
But we've gotten to a point where maybe it's a little too easy.
Right. Well, of course it is. That's why even one of our head officers in the ER was talking about bad food is cheaper. It's such a terrible thing that it's easier to eat. And poor, I don't know if you ever met one of the custodians at night. He's a younger black gentleman with like dreadlocks. He was like, hey, are you guys going to get food? Oh, we already ordered. He goes, oh, okay. Well, I guess I'll try and get some Wendy's or McDonald's. And then he takes a beat and goes, I'm really not trying to eat that stuff, but it's just so affordable. I was like, yeah, man, I really wish we would have known you wanted to order with us. We all got like something decently, I think at the time, like Chipotle. He's like, yeah, it's just so affordable. I felt bad, but we tried to include him because he's of the lower income. I think he has a little bit of a special needs, and he's trying to stop smoking cigarettes, and he's trying to eat cleaner. But his opportunity, he takes a bus to work. He lives in Maryland. It's all this. It sucks.
You're not talking very Republican right now.
I don't give a fuck. I would rather. I think if I'm not already classified as an independent, I think it's so silly I even have to choose that. What are you? I'm like, well, don't worry about it. Well, they want that so they can advertise to you, where they can decide whether to send you the red piece of mail or the blue piece of mail when it comes to election time. And if you see the blue piece of mail and you're a red guy, you just throw that out automatically, but you might actually read the pamphlet. Look, I tried to pose this question to my dad, and I don't know if you've ever seen the show The Oracle with the guy that created Family Guy. It poses an interesting question, and it kind of relates to automation and truck driving, what Andrew Yang was talking about, universal basic income. In the TV show, they have a matter synthesizer to where anything they wish comes through a 3D printer, whether it's a burger, beer, a 2x4, a whole house, whatever it is, where they don't have to worry about material goods anymore. And so people are judged on their IQ and what kind of task they can do that isn't automated. And so what happens is they have this guy, he's an underachiever, but he has a brilliant IQ. He's not thriving. He doesn't want to thrive, and they're trying to motivate him to be a leader and a head of a department on the show. Well, I asked my dad, and it literally, my dad's 76, I believe, 75. I asked my dad about, well, what happens when the jobs that we do don't need to be done anymore. Mm-hmm. When you type your symptoms into a computer, or you speak into a computer and it runs it through a database that can calculate way quicker than a human brain and comes back with a receipt that gives you diagnosis of, hey, you have cancer. And you're like, oh, what? It injects you, draws your blood, takes it to a scan, whatever it does. You don't need to drive your car anymore. You don't need to drive an 18-wheeler. We're getting to the point where McDonald's is almost a vending machine, right? We don't need someone taking our order. And now COVID-19 is getting to the point where how can we make that more possible? How can we separate human interaction so you're safe? So it's all very interesting to me, but one day we're going to be to a place where money doesn't have the value it used to. It's about intellect and capability of certain things. And as these people that have these old caveman brains that are trying to collect as much stuff as possible in order to trade for things, one day, are we going to be to a place where these CEOs of these corporations are starting to think like, okay, I have enough money. How about it's time we start making things, because I think Chevy Volt, Tesla, whatever, I think there's still skin in the game on, we want to sell so many units, and maybe Chevy Volt didn't sell so many units, so they stopped, even though it's good for them, better for the environment. So I wonder how long it's going to take for us to get to that point where it's like, hey, we're taxing the earth, whether it's, and I think if you're a Republican or a Democrat, I think the advertisement on global warming is off. Because I think all you have to do is ask a Republican, do you believe in global warming? And maybe they'll say no because they're Republican, right? Well, do you like litter? Do you like trash where you walk? Do you like big engines coaling smoke into the air? Do you like clean air? Do you like dumping trash pits in garbage landfills? Is that something you want in your neighborhood? You want to live next to a landfill? You want your house on top of 5 years of trash packed into the ground, and that's thumbs up, ready to go? People have it. When I was a kid, we used to clean up construction sites and take it to the landfill, and I just remember seeing this wasteland hidden behind trees, and I was like, what is this? And your shoes would stink. You would have to wear plastic bags on things. It's like, I don't know. I just think like, oh, maybe you don't believe in global warming, but do you want a trash island bigger than Texas? Do you want a clean beach? Do you want, and that's where I come from. We're like, okay, well, I know the earth is very old. I don't know exactly what we're doing to it, but I don't think big, huge plants that put stacks of smoke into the sky as I drive into New Orleans that I can visibly see from multiple miles away. I don't think that's a good thing. And then people talk about like poisoned rivers and lighting their water on fire. And when it rains, you can't tell how much smoke is in the air, so they open up their chimneys wider and all. It's like, man, that's a lot of bad stuff. And if you want to say I'm a Democrat for that, whatever, I don't give a shit. But to me, I want my son, I want him to have children that doesn't have to worry about, oh, we only have so many crop seasons left because the soil's dying. Like, it's a sad thing, and maybe it's not going to affect this lifetime, but we have to think a little bit longer than just our lifetime. And Egypt was based on slavery, I understand that, but it took thousands of years for them to build those things, and for them to convey the importance from one generation to the next and still get something built is amazing to me. We're just not doing that.
Yeah, and I think we're thinking way too short term. It's that whole like separation. That's that's not even in our lifetime. Like, and if you're a politician, it's definitely not in your lifetime because you're a little bit older. So I have to have hope, though. I think we're going to figure this thing out. I think right now is perfect. I mean, death is not okay. That sucks. We could have avoided some, but we could not have avoided that we're gonna have a virus. Like whether it's a virus or it's a natural disaster, like a hurricane. Like these things are things that the earth puts out. Now, whether this virus was manipulated or whatever, that's a whole other thing. But like, these are just natural things that happen, and I think right now we're at a point to start asking some good questions.
Yeah.
I don't think we were gonna get anywhere with like environmental things, but I think right now we're questioning every aspect of life, like whether children go to school, whether
the work week. What is a work week?
Yeah, telecommuting.
Yeah.
So traffic, obviously, we're essential, so that we have to go to work. I would love to telehealth or telenurse, but
I get those emails. They're like, "We're now allowing you to work from." Like, yeah, how am I going to draw blood from home? How am I going to do that?
So we're not there yet, but we've seen benefits from this, so I think this is a time to learn. So, and that was one of the things that I wanted to come and talk with you about, because a big thing that sparked for me was making change in this suicide thing. To kind of get full circle here. I want to have the conversation. I want to be accessible, because I can only...
You want to give your phone number?
Not that accessible. Not to the billions of people.
Oh, the 16 people. We had a record, I think the last one with, I don't want to say first and last name, but the last one was, I think like 48 people saw it. So like thumbs up. We're doing good here.
We'll get there. So, I think it's important to bring these things up.
Do you you say you want to make change with it? What is your contribution you're trying to do towards suicide prevention?
Yeah, so I think the big thing that we have to realize is our sphere of influence. I think that's huge. Recognizing that even one or two changes in the world can have... So that was a big thing that I had to learn in nursing. Like, because you learn about talking to patients about smoking prevention and knowing that, like, oh, well, they're probably not going to stop smoking just because I talk about it. But maybe they'll think the next time they light up one, maybe they'll hold off on that one.
Yeah.
And that starts a trend off of that straight path that they were on and bends it a little bit. So I think that's huge. And in recognizing that just because it doesn't feel like you've made a huge impact on the world, that those little incremental changes are huge to somebody else, because you may walk away from that person and years later they'll talk about like this person, just kind of made that spark.
Yeah.
So
whenever I have an opportunity to talk to a SI patient, which is a psych patient that's thought to be not safe with themselves, whenever I draw blood, and like we had a Marine recently, I was just kind of bullshitting with him and just let him know, like, hey man, it's gonna be all right, And I've had opportunity to talk to some of them. Like, I've been where you are. I've been literally in the emergency room, get my blood drawn for psych. So like, we didn't have to. I think it's a little bit demoralizing that we have to take all the things off the wall. That would it.
So there's a thing about, and there's evidence to support that. So the issue there is, and it gets into the kind of scary aspect of firearms as well. Mm-hmm. So there's this idea is if you remove the immediate threats from the environment, it creates, again, getting into that space and time between. So it could be good or it could be bad. So if you put some space between the ability to actually suicide, that has shown that it reduces suicide. So
Yeah, but the things we're removing is like, EKG cords. Like, how
I get it.
far
So
are you going to get away
and by
with
the
doing
time
that?
they get to us, honestly, they've already had the opportunity to go run out into what's the big Jefferson? I guess not Jefferson.
The highway, the
yeah.
one?
Yeah, Route 1.
Yeah.
So they could just run out into there and
Mhm.
run into traffic, and that could be it for them. So if they walked in and a police officer didn't like literally
Mhm.
drag them in, I'm not I'm not licensed to say it yet, but as far as I understand the evidence, they are less likely to commit.
Yeah,
or
well,
to successfully.
I think a lot of times they're seeking help. They're coming into the emergency room saying, "Hey, I'm feeling this way," right?
And I think
And then we're like, rip everything off the wall. And we're like, okay, because when I went in and had that, I was just, Looney Tunes, like not in my brain wasn't in a human body or vice versa. I wasn't functioning with a, very little sleep, super skinny, hyped up mania, like almost like chewing on my own tongue. When I was in the emergency room, I broke a piece of equipment, which makes me think I influenced something like that for like, all right, take that away outside of the room. But I remember that very vividly, like lifting up on a table, breaking the table, and everything being in the room. And now I'm at a ER where a 14-year-old comes in, and they walk right past it too. It's just like, oh, jeez, man, like. Wonder what this is. Is this my room? Do any of the other rooms look like that?
So I actually have a conversation with my patients, and I try to explain it. Like, if I suspected that you may be having a heart attack, I'm going to do all of the things that I am required to do for safety. I'm going to put you on the monitor. We're going to get an EKG. We're going to treat you just like we think that that's what it is until it's not. So I treat that patient the same as I treat you as a suicidal ideation patient, because safety is my number one priority. So I feel like if you sit down and you talk, again, it's just talking, like fucking talk. And I think that is what my message today, like, is we just gotta fucking talk. And speak up and talk to, especially as men, like, we're programmed to think we're supposed to be tough, we're supposed to do these tasks for our family, and that's what we do, and we shouldn't have feelings, or if we have feelings, we need to deal with those ourselves, or go out and drive our car and just think about it. Like, that's
go work out.
Yeah, that's not the only answer. It's helpful, but we have to do the other follow-up steps of actually talking. So I think things like, one, telling people it's okay to say that they're not okay.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing. When you tell a patient, hey, I've done all these safety things, but that's okay. Like, it's okay that we're in this place. I'm here with you right now. There's nothing wrong with that. Because so many people before you, and without like trying to get into your own issues, because you got to have that special, or play that right on the fence of like getting too personal. But you've got to provide empathy for them and just provide an environment where people can talk, whether it's suicide or whether it's like our beliefs of Democrats versus Republican, or environment versus the economy. Like, just having this chance to talk is extremely important. So I would say, like, for people that are thinking about this, like, if they're watching now, they should go to veterancrisisline.net. I know that one's got like where you can chat, you can call the number, you can text the number, and then I know the suicide hotline, just for civilians in general, is 1-800-273-TALK.
Yeah.
So, but just like talk to somebody. Like, let's just talk to each other.
Can you call anonymously? Is it anonymous?
I believe it is.
Yeah. Because I know again, I was in. It's weird how I don't know how things work, but again, I was in community college up in Oregon on my second round because I had to drop out because of psych issues, and I'm in class, and there's like this kind of fat reservist army dude, whatever he is, and I'm like, oh hey, you a veteran? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, and then he comes up to me nervously one day. He's like, hey, my friend called me from Italy, and he was talking about not feeling safe and maybe like suicidal type stuff, and so I called his command and let them know that they had a soldier in a barracks room that's not doing well because he wouldn't do it himself. He's like, did I do the right thing? I was like, yeah, I think so. He's like, I didn't screw his career. And I was like, I don't think you did. He put you in a peculiar situation where it's hard to hang up and just be like, huh, okay, I'm comfortable with that conversation I just had with that guy in Italy. You can't physically go check on him. I've witnessed someone in a manic scenario similar to the way I was in. It was this is a stretch now, it was one of my best friends at the time's wife's brother. I think he went to a Bonnaroo festival, he did a bunch of psychedelics, and then he got hopped up on Adderall because he was trying to write a paper. And the way he was talking and texting, I was like, oh, he's not coming down. This is going to end in him like 72-hour hold or going to the psych ward. He did. His parents had to go to Baton Rouge and like physically either take him in or get an ambulance. And it's a very delicate, sensitive situation. The kid's fine, A lot of people, what's going on with suicidal ideations is you think the end is near. You think that you might not make it out of this headspace scenario you're in, that your life might end soon, and you can't get away from those thoughts. I know that's something I experienced, and something that helped me was breathing, was starting to learn how to meditate by doing 10 deep breaths and then 4x4 breathing, and trying to get away from TV screens and just traditionally close my eyes and do like a yogi and do that. That helped me. And then I started getting plugged into a culture, which was college, going back to class. I took psychology because I wanted to know. I was talking to these psychologists, like, we want you to take antipsychotics. I was like, I don't think so. I don't think that's the solution for me. Though I was taking them, I wind up getting off of them while talking to someone, mm-hmm. right? Where I made an informed decision and let people know. I know there was some concern by my family members, like, oh, you can't just stop that. And yes, no, if a doctor's giving you something and you are being monitored, I don't suggest anyone come off of medication, right?
Yeah.
As a legal clause, right?
Yeah, you definitely need to talk with your doctor.
You got to talk with your doctor, start talking to a psychologist, and a lot of this stuff is temporary. I had a Navy SEAL one time tell me, a friend of a friend, he's like, hey man, whatever you're going through is most likely going to last 20 minutes.
That's a good point.
That pain is only going to, whether it's a run, whether if it's something excruciating, something mentally painful, most likely 20 minutes it should pass you by. And after that, then start reaching out, talking to people. Or in that 20 minutes, you can do that as well. But just kind of some guidelines from my personal experience with things like that.
I think that's huge. And I think what probably those guys, like team guys or special forces guys, recognize is that pain is inevitable. Like, mm-hmm. obviously in their job, they're in extremely high risk of getting injured mm-hmm. When they're deployed. But then, so I had, when I worked at Walter Reed with Wounded Warriors, those that had a really good track as far as their recovery from their injury, not just the psychological, or not just the physical, but the psychological aspect of being injured and losing limbs, was recognizing that pain is an inherent part of life. And I think when we try to avoid pain by doing all the things we just talked about with technology and all that stuff, it takes us away from the idea that pain is an absolute. Like suffering. I heard a quote, and I can't attribute it. But suffering is sandpaper. So obviously sandpaper could ruin something, but generally we use sandpaper to smooth things out and to better whatever we're working on. So if you think of suffering in your life as sandpaper, that's huge to think about. This moment is temporary, like you mentioned, and now going to the next step of asking for help or just talk to somebody. I think that's the big thing, like, that I struggled with, because so I prepared pretty well for this. So suicide, I guess, they say the number is like 130 some people is who it affects from one suicide. So there's 135 people that give a shit about you. Even if you feel like if there's not even one person, I swear to God, there is some human being out there that does give a shit about the next person. So, and maybe that's the solution to all the problems that we just talked about. This
maybe
podcast,
giving a shit, giving a
shit about being kind to people, just being
it's a big thing. Like love, having it's very are you married?
Yeah.
Love is a crazy healing thing, and a dog can give us love. That was a good thing for me whenever I was going through my hard times. Having a dog, unconditional, didn't give a shit what I did, was just loved me. Nature's very healing, and if I'd say this as a thing to put out into the universe. If you're done talking or you're having trouble sleeping at night, I've done my friend Nick wrecked the Prius. He taught me something called a brain dump. At the end of the night, if you can't sleep, get out of bed, grab a notepad, and just every single thought that you have, you write it down. You can do that as like a conversation with yourself as well. I've done that very well. It's helped very much. What I'm trying to say.
I think that, so you touched on love. Like, we also got to tell people we love them. Like, it's obvious we tell our wives that we love them, or your partner, or whatever it may be. We tell our kids that we love them. But for, like, Marines, I'm not going to tell but now that it's been so long with the guys that I was in my old unit with, like, that we deployed with, like, we started to tell each other we love each other. Like, and that has been big for me to tell my buddies, my best friends, because they're honestly my best friends, like, hey, I love you. Like, and that is, I think it's transformative when you start to express that you have meaning to me enough that I have feelings of endearment for you. Like, you make an impact on my life. And I think even if you're not a nurse or a psychologist or psychiatrist or whatever, like, if you want to make an impact on the world on the whole suicide thing, is just telling people you care about them, that you love them. I think that's, and just, again, we said it, just be nice to people, be kind.
It's
and be nice to yourself, like with that whole writing thing. Get the toxins out.
There was some times where it was very rough on me, and sometimes that's okay, because I think we are our own worst critic at times. Sometimes you're being truthful with yourself that, like, hey, you're not doing all the right things.
It's a balance, for sure. Everything.
So psychedelics have put me in check on that before. Just like, oh, I'm living a not great way. I need to check myself. I wouldn't suggest, if you're having issues, to take psychedelics. Nature's very good. I don't know if you know this, that the hospital we're in is themed around nature in order to help heal people, and that the rooms that don't have windows of nature have tapestry, like something like
The
this,
wallpapers and stuff.
except all the views in the ER just open to an ambulance bay. I guess rooms like 9 and 8 don't have anything, but like rooms 10, 11, and 12 have tapestry and stuff. Those are the only 3 rooms now that I realize it. We're failing. But yeah, some sort of study said that if you have views of nature when you're recovering in a hospital, you recover faster.
Yeah.
It's
Rooms with
pretty
windows. Yeah. Patients do better.
Yeah. Anyway, feel like this is coming to an end. Feel good about it? You want to talk about my advertisement? This podcast is brought to you by Magic Spoon.
I really want to try it, but
It's
too expensive.
It is, but if you use if you put in Tim Dillon at the end of the code, you can email them later, and then they'll give you tax-free or shipping-free. I had to painstakingly do that. It's alright. It's kind of cool. I'm like a rapper. I'm trying to fake the funk until I actually am sponsored. I haven't done it yet, but I want to do a GoFundMe so I can get another microphone. This was a little bit of money.
I think you probably have enough episodes now that I think you could do the GoFundMe.
Yeah.
And now you had me on that.
It's pretty. I mean, you're our first non-enlisted, so that's pretty good. I appreciate this. This took a little bit of effort, but I think things that are worthwhile take effort. Organization, a deliberate conversation is a pretty cool thing. Thank you for coming. You want to do a COVID handshake?
Thanks for having me.
All right. That's it. Security Clearance Podcast, the sewing machine between us. Out.